Hey guys, Darren Miles Photography based here in beautiful, sunny Southwest Florida. Quick intro to this video. It's been extraordinarily busy the last like 6 months. It's been insane. It's been really hard to keep up with the YouTube channel. I'm working with a very gifted video editor. His name is Lionel Decius. He's amazing. He's the one that edited and cut this video. The guy's incredible. But what I wanted to do right now is I'm finally giving to you the first part. It's either going to be a 3 or 4 part series in the Leica versus Sony comparison, the Leica M10 P with the Voigtlander 75mm f1.5 versus the Sony A7 IV with the Sigma 85mm f1.4, the newer version of the Sigma that has the aperture ring. Both are fantastic lenses, both are great cameras, but I'll let you be the judge as far as which one is better. With that, here's part 1. Hey guys, I'm Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography, and I'm based here in beautiful, sunny Southwest Florida. And today we have a treat for you. We're going to be doing a comparison between a Leica M10 and a Sony A7 IV. All right guys, this is a very interesting video tonight because we're going to be comparing an old school style Leica M10 with a Voigtlander 75mm f1.5 lens versus the Sony A7 IV with a Sigma 85mm f1.4 lens. This is like the latest and greatest of autofocusing technology and optics, and this is like old world, old school. Really got to slow down and think through every single one of your shots. It's an entirely different experience. I know a lot of folks, it's like a love-hate relationship with Leica. I recently got this one. It's a long story. I got a really good deal on it, but I got this Leica because I've always wanted to understand what the mystique was. And tonight we're going to be filming, or I should be saying photographing, the lovely and talented Hannah. You want to say hello, Hannah? Who is gorgeous, and she's going to be our model tonight. We're going to go through the paces here. We're at the old Naples Depot here in Southwest Florida. It's basically a bunch of old train cars when there used to be a train depot here in Southwest Florida. And then we're going to go into downtown Naples. We're going to get more shots down there to get like some nighttime background bokeh-y kind of images. So without further ado, let's get to our first pose and let's test out both the Leica and the Sony. Let's do it. All right, so the first shot, let's talk about the setup and the shooting experience, because if you're working with a new automated camera like the Sony, this thing literally does everything for you. If you've ever utilized a Sony camera, or even like the camera that my videographer Lionel's using, the Canon R6, the camera does a great job of automatically focusing on the subject's eye and just sticking there. It like just never lets go. You can move backwards and forwards and it stays right on the face no matter what the whole time. If you're shooting continuous autofocus, it's great. Very convenient, very modern, it's pretty awesome. With a Leica, it's the exact opposite experience. What happens with this thing is that it is fully manual. There's nothing automatic about the Leica at all, nothing. We're setting the aperture, the shutter, the ISO, everything is like setting it up. You really need to be photographing either street subjects or static subjects. In this case, we're shooting portraits. So we're going to be setting up really setting up the Leica. The Sony's is kind of going to be able to do its own thing and we'll just be able to roll. But the Leica, I've got to be very deliberate. I've got to slow down. I've got to set every little parameter before I push the shutter button. And we're going to talk through that. And I want you to be thinking about these things if you're ever considering getting a Leica. So let's get started with Hannah here. We're going to take our first couple of pictures. So we're shooting at f1.4 on this particular lens. What we're going to do now is we're going to switch over to the Leica and the Voigtlander 75mm f1.5, and you're going to see what a very different and very deliberate experience this is. First things first, when you're shooting the Leica, you have to use a tripod if you're utilizing a wide aperture lens. In this case, we're utilizing the Voigtlander 75mm f1.5. Obviously, it's not quite as wide as the 1.4, but the difference is very nominal. We're also shooting at 75mm instead of 85mm, so the actual field of view is going to be a little bit wider on the Voigtlander, but the look and feel of the images should be similar. So, but I want you to notice this. With Leica, they have this old school way of focusing called a rangefinder, which you have this little cube or a little like transparent square in the center of the frame, and as you move the focus, there's like two scenes, and as they crisscross and come together, that's when you know you're in focus. With a wide aperture lens like this one, I don't like to shoot like that. I prefer to utilize an electronic viewfinder. And of course, surprise, surprise, with Leica, this is like a $500 accessory, and it's a piece of plastic that isn't built all that well, but it attaches to the camera, and it allows me to utilize the electronic viewfinder, or an electronic viewfinder for the Leica. I can also tip this up and tip this down, which makes the experience of, it's almost like a tilty flippy screen, sort of, kind of. Not flippy, but tilty. Anyway, let's line up the Leica. All right, so let's assume that same position. Let's see. Ooh. All right, we are set at f1.5. We're on the tripod because, again, I really can't be moving here. So let's see. We're gonna deliberately, very slowly get in focus here. I'm gonna make sure I'm in focus by zooming in on my subject, which the Leica can do right there. And now everything's perfect. I'm not gonna move. Okay, so what we can do now is let's compare those two images, or results from those two cameras, side by side and see what we get. One of the lines I like to use when I describe Leicas is that if you hate perfect, you're gonna love Leica. But sometimes imperfection is what makes an image great. Perfection almost makes an image kind of boring, which may be one of the allures to Leica. But that was just the first pose we were gonna take. We're gonna do a couple more here around this depot, including one where we may get up on that platform. We're gonna wait till it gets a little bit darker for that. And we're gonna head over to these two trains over here. All right, guys, scene number 2. We're gonna pretend that our model, Hannah, just came off a train from a long journey from someplace really cold like New York or Boston or Chicago. Ooh. Granted, it's June, so it's not too cold this time of the year up there, but let's pretend it's like December. Because, you know, here in beautiful sunny Southwest Florida, the sun is always shining and it's always beautiful outside, unless we have a hurricane, but that's another story. But Hannah's a roofer, so if there was a hurricane, she could help us. All right, so let's talk about this. Hannah's standing in bright sunlight right now. Normally this is a photographer's worst nightmare. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna underexpose these pictures. We want these to be intentionally underexposed so that the most obvious thing about this shot is the sun hitting Hannah's face. That's the one thing we're gonna focus our exposure on, is her face. So it's gonna be really dark and really high contrast. She's gonna be looking off, like as if the camera wasn't even here as we take these pictures. Like somebody just came in and, oh my God, it's so beautiful here. I can't believe how great this is. I want like a big smile on your face, like throwing your head back, like, wow, this is just epic, okay? And yes, I know I'm making you laugh, but try not to laugh. So yeah, you got this. All right, so let's see what we got here. Same direction. Big smile, like, this weather's beautiful. Look at those pearly whites. Beautiful. Like, what's so great about the Sony is this thing is just crushing the focus. I mean, it's picking up her eye even from this distance, and she looks absolutely amazing. All right, so just for the heck of it, let's pose it up and cheese it up a little bit. You know, kind of cross your arms, let your hand kind of hang here. Yes, shoulders back, good posture. Good, turn your face a little bit this way. Good, you can look at the... Good, perfect. All right, so if you look at these exposures, everything on these, she is way underexposed, and that's totally by design. We did that on purpose. We want to underexpose these images because I just wanted her face to be the one thing that's exposed properly for the camera. In fact, if anything, I may have even underexposed her face a little bit, but that's okay. I can bring that up, bring up those shadows in Photoshop or in Lightroom. I know, get it right in camera. I totally agree with that, but every now and again, it's okay to correct or make some corrections in Photoshop. Everybody does it. You're lying if you say you don't. Okay, let's change cameras. We're gonna switch over to the Leica. So much like before, I'm gonna be very deliberate about my setup. I gotta take my time, adjust the camera, get everything just right before I take that first shot. It's like we lost our son, huh? Ah, crud. All right, so let's see. There she is. Let's bring the ISO down. I'm gonna bring the ISO to 100. Let's see, yes, it's at 100. There we go. I'm gonna bring up our shutter to the max, which on a Leica, by the way, another one of those important things to know about your Leica is that the fastest shutter speed you can get is 1/4000th of a second. On the Sony, it's 1/8,000th of a second. In an ambient light situation like this, going from 1/4,000th to 1/8,000th, there's a lot of sunshine on your client's face. That's actually an important distinction. I could drop the aperture, but it won't really be a fair comparison between the Sony and the Voigtlander because I want the apertures to be wide open on both of these cameras and lenses. All right, so shoulders back. We don't have as much sunshine on you right now. I wish we did. Hold on one second. I'm just gonna wait. We're gonna wait. Let's pause for a second. Let's wait for some sunshine.
A few moments later.
Well, naturally, we lost our sun. It went behind a cloud for a little while, and then now it's below this building, so we really can't get the similar shot with the Leica. So I'm just going to take a few photos with the Leica anyway, just for comparison's sake, even though they're not going to be lit quite the same. If you're in a fast-paced environment where you have to get a lot of pictures done quickly, the Sony's pretty awesome. The Leica, like I said, the Leica is like an artist camera. It's like when you want to slow down, just take like one picture at a time and like really just get everything perfect and right and set and everything's just like static and unmoving. What's so beautiful about the Sony is I just set this up and within literally, what, a second and a half, her face is already in focus and I'm already ready to go. I'm already snapping away. It's like, it's just nailing her face with every single shot. About the Sony too is that the EVF is huge and big. It's also included. It's not an accessory, which is really nice. And the back screen of the Sony is actually not that great, but the viewfinder is pretty awesome. And when you look at these photos, I mean, I'm actually looking at the picture right now. It's pretty spectacular. It's tack sharp. It's in focus. The background blur is beautiful. 85 millimeters, full frame. It's pretty spectacular. We're gonna sneak up there. Hannah's the adventurous type. She's like, this fence isn't that high. I'm like amazing. I love tomboys. So she's like, you know, I'll hop the fence. I'm like, okay. So I would expect nothing less from a roofer to hop the fence. So we're gonna set up an artificial light. I've got one of those, they call them the China balls. They almost look like one of those things you see in a Chinese restaurant. It's one of those aperture like light spheres. It's really cool. And we're gonna put one of those up and kind of put it off to the side. We're gonna illuminate you a little bit with that. We'll see what we get. It could be kind of interesting. Like almost if she's coming out of a train at night and hopefully the cameras don't bust our chops and the cops don't show up. So we'll see. If we get arrested or busted, I'll take responsibility. All right, let's do it.